I want to ask you about some reporting in the New York Times about the FBI launching an investigation into one of its journalists after she published an article about how FBI Director Kash Patel reportedly provides his girlfriend with government resources. It comes on the heels of that startling report in The Atlantic detailing Patel's alleged excessive drinking and unexplained absences, which he denies. Patel is suing The Atlantic now for $250 million in damages, calling the report defamatory. The Atlantic says it stands by its reporting and will vigorously defend itself and its journalists. But now lawmakers and a watchdog group are demanding answers. Much to discuss with Ken, who's back with us, along with Skye Perryman, who is the president and CEO of Democracy Forward, which is now investigating Patel's conduct and leadership. Ken, what are you learning about why this Times reporter was reportedly investigated and what that all entailed?
Well, on a point of personal privilege, first of all, actually, Carol Leonnig and I originally broke the story that Kash Patel had directed that a group of SWAT agents, FBI agents, form a personal protective detail for his girlfriend, something that's never happened before in FBI history. Spouses get protection, girlfriends don't. The New York Times expanded on that reporting, and apparently they are reporting that their reporter who pursued that story, including trying to speak with Kash Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins, came under FBI investigation. And a lot of people are very troubled by that idea, the idea that somehow the FBI would investigate a reporter who was working on a story that was unflattering to the FBI director. But it's important to point out that the FBI and the spokesman for Kash Patel, Ben Williamson, is disputing that this reporter ever was under investigation. He says this is a misunderstanding, that in fact there was an investigation into death threats made against Alexis Wilkins, and that this reporter, again, was never under investigation. So we have a difference of interpretation of the facts here, but the New York Times is asserting that their reporter was under investigation, and they are saying that is a big problem. It smacks of intimidation, the use of official resources to try to essentially protect the FBI director's reputation on it.
And the New York Times executive editor Joseph Kahn says that this is a, quote, blatant violation of the reporter's First Amendment rights in an effort to prevent journalists from scrutinizing the FBI's actions, calling it alarming, unconstitutional, and wrong. Skye, what are the larger ramifications if the FBI goes after journalists like this?
Well, this is a pattern that we're seeing, unfortunately, with the administration. The president, of course, says that he fired Pam Bondi because he was upset that she wasn't going after what he considers his political enemies fast enough. And so you see this type of conduct is highly concerning. But the executive editor of the Times has it just right on the law. The First Amendment protects our journalists, and this administration has been losing in court when they have engaged in this type of retaliatory conduct. We've seen that across the board over the last years. And I think that if the FBI is going to operate that way, you will continue to see them rack up losses.
Skye, talk to us about what you at Democracy Forward are investigating when it comes to Director Patel. What right to transparency does the American public have here?
Yeah, so we've really heard so much concern following reports around Kash Patel's drinking on the job. The FBI is supposed to keep Americans safe, not be engaging in political retaliation, and certainly not have a director that is operating in a way that makes them unfit for the job. And so we have filed a request with the FBI under the Freedom of Information Act, which enables all people in this country to request information from their government. We will be pursuing these requests aggressively. If the FBI does not respond to the request in the allotted time, you will see us in court having to enforce those requests.
Patel has denied the accusations. I'm wondering if you've heard anything from the administration since you made these FOIA requests.
Well, we've, of course, heard nothing, which is typical with this administration. And one of the beautiful things about the Freedom of Information Act and the rights that people in this country have and the work that we do every day is that the documents are going to speak for themselves. We believe that there will be information in these documents that will be relevant to the American people and their assessment of whether the FBI director should have this role. You also see members of Congress making very reasonable requests, asking that the FBI director swear statements around his conduct, which seems very reasonable given so much concern that people across the country have.
Democrats in Congress are also requesting the FBI director to take an alcohol disorder test and provide the results to lawmakers by next week. Ken, how unusual is a request like that? Is it likely to actually happen?
I've never seen anything like this, Anna. Remember, one of the most explosive allegations in that Atlantic report was that there have been occasions when Kash Patel's security detail could not wake him up in the morning because he had been so drunk the night before. Now, Patel denies this. Patel denies he's ever been intoxicated on the job. But Democrats are concerned enough that they want him to fill out this alcohol self-assessment form. I mean, nobody thinks this is going to happen. He's not going to do it. They know that. But they're trying to make the point here with the public that these are very serious allegations and that Kash Patel has a responsibility to be transparent about it. And they want him to come and talk under oath about his drinking and about whether he's been in nightclubs because, he's denied that. But there have been these persistent reports, and the Atlantic is just the latest to say that a lot of people think differently, that they think that there is a problem here. Anna.
Meanwhile, you have a federal judge just handing down Patel a legal blow yesterday, tossing out a separate defamation case that he brought against former FBI Assistant Director Frank Figliuzzi over comments Figliuzzi made while he was an analyst on this network about the time Patel spends in nightclubs. Sky, does this tell you anything about how Patel's defamation case against The Atlantic may hold up in court?
It tells you everything you need to know, and it's what I've said. The administration, and in this instance, Kash Patel, they've really been largely unsuccessful in pursuing this type of a retribution agenda. That doesn't mean that there's not cause for concern. Of course, it's terrible to think about the FBI being weaponized for the president's own political purposes, or having an FBI director that would seek to use his power to threaten journalists or threaten people across the country. But the administration's going to continue to lose in court on these transparent attempts that violate the Constitution.